Okay, hi everyone. Okay, hi everyone. So today we have a special treat. We have a debate, and let me open up my my files here that I want to present. And okay, yes, thank you for reminding me to share the screen. And so we go to share screen and open up my files here. And so we go to methodology and we go to lesson plan and see what's on the lesson plan. So today we have me and Kritika on to South Koreans. South Korea is strong in demonstrating how to manage multinational corporations. And so I've done a little quick keyword searches on the news to find out what exactly South Korean companies are doing. But before I go into that, we'll start the debate first before we go into that. So let me see what else, if there's anything else that I need to open up to remind us of what we're going to cover here. I think we've pretty much covered most of the content of the reading, the notes that I gave you. So we can probably just go directly to the debate. But before we go to the debate, let me also show you, I don't think I showed you this at the last class, this report here about, again, highlighting the wonder of qualitative research. And it states here, this is from a few years ago, faculty and students in Oakland University's Department of Music, Theater, and Dance are looking forward to a powerful partnership that blossomed following a November visit from a prominent education researcher, Tom Barone. And it goes on to highlight how Mr. Barone is an expert in qualitative research methods, author of Aesthetics, Politics, and Additional Inquiry Touching Eternity, the Enduring Outcomes of Teaching. Barone teaches courses in curriculum studies in qualitative research methods. Yay! In Mary Lou Felton College of Education at Arizona State University. His work centers around alternative ways of sharing research findings, particularly those that might be more meaningful to readers than scientific models. But there's no conflict between qualitative and scientific models. Wiggins explained, among the alternatives he and his mentor, Elliot Eisner of Stanford, proposed was narrative presentation. Hooray, narrative presentation of qualitative work, rooted in what Eisner and Barone have described as arts-based educational research, like performances. Arts-based research, including synthesis, analysis of narrative and narrative construction, strives to portray the meaningfulness of the situation being studied in ways that have the potential to touch the reader in personally meaningful ways, and therefore potentially redefine the reader's understanding of aspects of his or her own life, Wiggins said. And it goes on here, what a great teacher Professor Barone was, and in music, theater, and dance. And Dr. Tom Barone is an icon in the qualitative research circles, Martin said. What an honor it was to meet him, listen to his approach to writing, and witness his thoughtfulness about and care for his topic. So, yay! And so again, just to highlight that, and yet we'll do the attendance now. Go to the attendance, and start attendance is 796 is your smart attendance number, 796. So I go to chatting and put in 796. 796 is your smart attendance number. Okay. smart attendance number is 796. Okay. And then, okay, so I guess we can,
Sure, excuse me.
ho, 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 ho.
Can you hear me?
What's that, Gloria?
Yeah. That's Gloria.
Okay, all right, so
Yeah. Just to say that even in European politics, I had problem with the attendance. I
Okay,
could
yeah,
not find
I saw
it.
your email. I'll deal with it after class, okay? Okay, so,
Yeah, and in Discord too.
okay, I'll deal with it.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so
Thank you.
let's then go on to our debate today. And since I'm in the debate, I will start with pro. And Gloria, do you have anything that you want to upload or put on the show on the share screen? You know, if you have your flash drive, you can put it in here and open it up so you can open it, show it, okay? And okay, so then let's go to the debate topic, and let's go to the voting here, because you can see I want us to get the most benefit out of this exercise, so people can think about each of the elements, including the pro opening statement and con opening statement and pro rebuttal, and then con rebuttal conclusion, and pro has the last word with the conclusion. And so I started off with pro opening statement. So we go to, opening statement on the debate topic. To South Koreans, South Korea is strong in demonstrating how to manage multinational corporations. So I'm going to use my smartphone as a timer. And so let me open up my clock on my beautiful smartphone on timer and set it to 6 minutes, and make sure I'm thinking about my presentation style. So that means I'm going to stand up, and so I can be more entertaining that way. And let's see, why isn't it? Okay. So I will put it somewhere, somewhere so I can see it, and get set up for this. And go back to timer. Start. I will now start. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, remember I mentioned at the last class that I read the New York Times every day. Maybe that's one of the benefits for being a college professor in political science, that I get to spend a big chunk of the day reading a newspaper. And that's like really important, because the pace of world change is accelerating, going hopefully to a brighter future, maybe not so bright, with the pandemic, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the election of Trump. The world seems to be on the brink of something, an epochal change in international affairs. And as I told you last class, that I didn't see much about Stellantis, for example, in terms of building battery factories for electric vehicles, which we're supposed to all move to really quickly here. By the end of this decade, like those noisy, polluting gasoline cars that you see everywhere in Buchan, they're all supposed to begin to disappear. That by the end of this decade, the automobile companies are going to be selling electric vehicles. And I've already started noticing them on campus. There are a couple people that drive around on campus. I can tell listening to the car, that's an electric car. So they're already appearing here on campus. So I told you, reading the New York Times, I don't typically hear much reporting about or see much reporting regarding, for example, Stellantis, that Chrysler, Fiat, Peugeot merger. But then I checked this morning, and of course, in the capital of the American automobile industry is Detroit, traditionally, Detroit, Michigan. That's where GM is headquartered, and typically Ford automobile company was headquartered there, still headquartered there. And of course, in the Detroit Free Press, in the Detroit media, there's all sorts of reports about Stellantis and other companies developing electric vehicles and battery plants. And guess who they are always partnering with? LG, Hyundai, Korean companies. Like America's strategy for dealing with climate change by moving away from gasoline and diesel powered vehicles to electric vehicles, South Korea has a critical role to play. I mean, this is being encouraged by the US government. It must be encouraged by the US government. You saw Joe Biden, President Joe Biden was here in South Korea. And where did he go? He went to a Samsung semiconductor plant that produces the most advanced, most powerful semiconductors in the world. And to encourage also Samsung to build those factories in the United States. So it seems to show to me, whatever the reason, which is very important, that South Korea certainly knows how to build what Trompenars and Hampton Turner call truly global company, that they are able to function successfully in creating not an international company, a global company, that a global company that integrates the best, that reconciles the dilemmas between Confucian communitarian cultures and American individualistic cultures. And the evidence is in all of these South Korean partnerships and investment plans in the United States, and using Samsung as a model for developing new semiconductor plants that are supposed to overcome this worldwide shortage of critical semiconductors. And we're the two main sources of those most advanced semiconductor chips that you need for your cars, for all your equipment, Taiwan and South Korea. And it's extended beyond automobile manufacturers. It's extended to New York Times has a centrally important bureau here in South Korea. So that South Korean bureau for the New York Times, it has full responsibility over the New York Times when the New York Times office in New York closes for the night, because we're 13 hours ahead. So the Korean bureau is open to deal with world events, breaking news, as illustrated, for example, in that leak about the upcoming US Supreme Court decision overturning the right to legal abortion. The sole bureau of the New York Times organized the New York Times publication of this imminent groundbreaking news report. So I think now you can say, well, that's because America is so influential in South Korea and America is so influential in Taiwan. Maybe so. But the fact is, the point is that it's really given tremendous global social capital to South Korea, that South Korean companies are truly global companies. They are able to work effectively in places like Alabama and Ohio and in Kentucky and in Canada. Stellantis is building, I think, no, it's Hyundai. Hyundai is building a battery plant in Ontario, Canada. And of course, Hyundai is not only in the United States, it's been very active in China, and it's been active in other countries as well, like Vietnam. The word is that, again, that these Korean companies are moving to build up their capabilities outside of China because of escalating conflict or controversy between the United States and China. That's true, but the point is that these companies know how to deal with these challenges more effectively than just about anybody else in the world. Thank you. And Katika, you can come up now. Oh, before, yes, and you can get ready. And now I'd like to ask everybody to on pros opening statement. So I'm going to Katika now, or she can do it later. You have until 12 o'clock to do that. Pro opening statement. And, so you can see, you see the screen, we share the screen here. Make sure you can see the screen. Pro opening statement. Okay, so, and Khan will make her opening statement.
So thank you, Professor, for your statement. Now I'm going to make my con statement. So although South Korea has many big corporations in their country, for instance, like you mentioned, Samsung, Hyundai, LG, etc., it's still hard to refer to them as a nation that is good at demonstrating how to manage multinational corporations. According to Trompenars and Hampton Turner, in their book, they mentioned that the organizational model people give to their organization is acquired from their cultural programming. In other words, culture in the societal sense helps determine the type of culture a corporation will be, or it helps determine the corporate culture of a business. So for example, if a culture highly prioritizes the power of authority, which we can see is the case for South Korean culture, the corporate culture here will reflect that, and it will be exhibited in a more hierarchical or vertical system where there's a clear line between the employer and the employees. Employers will always be the one to make the decisions. Any information, any decision will work their way from top to bottom. It's very rigid in the sense of centralization of power. While this type of corporate culture works well in South Korea, where the employees are predominantly South Korean, sharing similar beliefs and values, the model might not work as well or translate as well with other cultures. For example, the Western cultures like American culture or the Danish, where it's more person-oriented rather than power-oriented. And furthermore, South Korea has a family type culture that exists in the working environment as well, where the work atmosphere resembles a homely environment, which is apparently the result of being late to industrialization, as stated in the Champagnard's book. So this type of culture is also known as the high context culture, where people rely heavily on body language, tone of voice, inflections, and such to communicate. And it's hard for people who are not part of the culture, who are outsiders or foreigners, to join in because they might not know how to behave appropriately, which could lead to tension, miscommunication, and misunderstanding. And these types of problems will have more severe consequences in a corporation, especially a multinational one where there's a lot of money on the line, there's more staff members. If the business fails, for example, the merger or acquisition or partnership fails, a lot of people's livelihoods are compromised. So as a result, I don't think South Korean firms showcases the ideal image of being a welcoming and accepting space as a multi-corporation as of right now.
Of course, if you have any questions, if you have questions, you can ask them. Anybody have questions? Oh, the question is to me. Okay, you can ask the question. Well, I mean, certainly Samsung thinks that they can make a lot of money, profit. I mean, they have this history of making, doing quite well in the American market, right? So, yeah, certainly your question touches upon an important issue regarding the relationship of government to markets and government to economic behavior. Americans have a problem because they like to have this romantic stereotype that economics and business is natural, that economics and business happens in the state of nature that was described by John Locke as being a condition in which people have a natural predisposition to want to make a better life for themselves. So they don't really need a strong state to make economic cooperation to occur. And that's an American romantic self-image. I think, however, Koreans and most other countries of the world, in Asia and Europe, have a strong understanding that business is done in partnership and with the awareness of the role of the state to facilitate the economic development of the community. And this is articulated in the principle of corporatism. Like, Americans don't like corporatism because to bring up Trompenaars and Hampton-Turner, they don't like to believe that they are corporatist. But like Trompenaars and Hampton-Turner emphasize in their book, that these are simply romantic self-images that are starting points for persuasion and legitimation of actors to act in certain ways. Because the Americans do engage in corporatism. They just don't like to admit it. Koreans, Japanese, Germans, French, Chinese, of course, the state should play a leading role in promoting the economic development of the community. But the Americans don't like to admit that because of their history, because of the role of Protestantism in the United States, rejecting the centralized state that was legitimated by the state religion in late feudal a period in which the king claimed to rule on the benefit of the community, to make sure they all go to heaven. So you have to worship God in the right way, and etc. But the Calvinist Protestant Revolution rejected the big, powerful state, but they still employ big, powerful states when Americans go to war, for example. So this country that supposedly is very hesitant and suspicious of big, powerful government, it has by far the biggest military industrial complex of any country in the world. It spends $800 billion a year on military defense. That's 40% of the world's total military expenditures are just the United States. And how does this relate to economics and business? All of these, so many important companies got their start and support through the military industrial complex. Why does Boeing dominate the world's aerospace industry? Because they had, any answer to that question has to include the fact that Boeing has I haven't started my debate yet. Boeing has a secure customer in the Defense Department to supply the U.S. Defense Department going back to World War II. So and during the Cold War, the U.S. Defense Department always bought Boeing products. So as a result, Boeing became the only airline manufacturer for the world. And so the Europeans responded in the 1970s by creating Airbus with explicit state government support for creating a European aerospace industry, because an aerospace industry generates lots of good jobs that pay good wages, that develop the community's scientific capacity, its engineering capacity, its social capital. And the Americans tolerated that, although they never really liked it. But if the Americans do it in the name of defense, it's okay. So many companies, and also through the space program, so many innovations. The semiconductor was invented in the United States to support the space program. The space program was organized by the US government, was organized through the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So the fact that Samsung knows that it should have good relations with the United States and work with the US government is not in contradiction with this notion that well, I should start my debate, is not in contradiction with the notion that a company needs to be an effective partner with state governments if they want to be successful global corporations. You can't ignore them, right? If you want access to the Chinese market, and of course, China is by far South Korea's greatest trade partner, surpassing US and Japan combined in terms of total sales, or at least it was until the pandemic. You have to cooperate with the Chinese government. And so there's not necessarily a conflict with that. Now, let me start my debate. And this, the security feature on this phone I just installed, it's kind of a pain in the neck. Okay, so let me start the 4-minute rebuttal. So my esteemed opponent highlighted how Korean culture is too specifically oriented towards its Asian roots to allow Korean companies to be strong multinationally. We need to look again more closely at the Trompenaars and Hampton Turner book, and that come up maybe in the later chapters. The successful company are the companies that reconcile effectively these these different values of countries that all share same fundamental challenges in their development over centuries and generations of time, but they are still on values along seven value continuums that you can place them on. Individualistic versus, for example, communitarian is one of the 7 that was highlighted in the Trompenaars Hampton Turner book. But as I told you, all of these cultures, they have these communitarian and individualistic elements within them. It's just that they have these romantic, ideal archetype self-images that Trompenaars and Hampton Turner call values, that are explicit articulations or expressions of how a good Korean acts. What is the good way for a Korean to act? What is the good way, the proper way for an American to act? What is the good or proper way for a German to act? But these are romantic images and stereotypes. But when they actually deal with reality, of course, Americans are concerned about the well-being, the personal well-being, for example, of their employees outside of the workplace. Typically, the Americans like to believe, I don't care what's going on in your private life. It's none of my business. If you're a man and you're gay, I don't care if you're gay. I just care if you're doing your job here at the plant or at the office, because we Americans, we only care if you're able to do the job or not. And that's not really true. We do care about people's personal lives. It's just that the romantic initial reaction is, oh, America, we don't care about what you do in your private life because we're all about freedom and individual liberty. And it's none of my business what's going on in your life, but it is my business. I mean, and you see that being reflected, for example, in concerns today about, are your employees having mental health problems? Are your employees having alcohol addiction problems or drug addiction problems? How are you dealing with daycare for your children? To be more assertive, for example, in social events in the workplace, are we creating an environment in which people who are not straight, who are gay, do they feel comfortable and safe if they come to the workplace with their partner, to the workplace Christmas party that we have every year? And the claim is, Trump and ours and Him and Turner highlighted that companies that address those issues effectively and creatively, they're going to be more successful because you're going to get more value out of your employees. If you go beyond the ideal romantic stereotypes of your culture, and the Koreans are best effective at doing that. They appear to be effective at doing that for many reasons: the quality of their education, the fact that everybody's got to start studying English when they're 7, that there's so many Koreans have they learn English language so well because they have relatives in US, Australia, Canada. They study English, they go live with their relatives. They know how to deal with multiple national cultural backgrounds and to reconcile them effectively. And you can say it's because they've been affected by American domination. Maybe yes, but nevertheless, Korean companies are at the cutting edge of globalization. Okay, and so Kritika will now provide her response and conclusion. And okay, so there you saw Khan's actual opening statement for rebuttal. Sorry, not pro's rebuttal. So let me go to pro rebuttal and ask you to vote on where's pro rebuttal? Pro rebuttal, yay, pro rebuttal. So you can vote on that as well. And okay, so Khan's rebuttal conclusion can start.
Okay, so I was about to mention this in the rebuttal, but Dale mentioned it beforehand. What you mentioned has a pattern where it's the American companies taking charge, partnering up with South Korean firms. So it could be argued that United States is the one good at demonstrating how to manage a multinational corporations. The automobile industries want to use LG batteries, not necessarily want to work with South Koreans. The New York Times based an office in South Korea so that they can write about global news in times of the other head office closed. They want to make headlines. It's not exactly a collaboration. And as you might know, South Korean economy is heavily reliant and dependent on the chaebol system. So the chaebols are family-owned businesses that have subsidiaries across various industries, and they've been generously supported by the government since the early 60s to help rebuild their economy, nurturing brands like Samsung, Hyundai, the SK Group, Lotte, and they traditionally place members of the founding family in ownership or management positions, kind of like nepotism, allowing them to maintain control, which could be difficult if they merge or partner with other companies from abroad. There could be a struggle for power and control, and how power is centralized could differ. What happens when they team up with a company or a culture where power is decentralized or delegated? So like I said, chaebol closely cooperates with the government for their success, and the top 5 conglomerates in South Korea own more than half of the South Korean stock market's value, which is a staggering amount. And however, if they were to venture out of South Korea to a global level, they have to answer to different governmental policies, ones that don't nurture their growth, the ones that have their own country as a priority. So this will make it hard for South Korean firms to be successful on an international scale. And to conclude, I'd like to say that currently South Korea struggles to be seen as a strong nation in handling multinational corporations due to cultural differences, as well as other fundamental systems that differ in and outside of the country.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Khan? If not, of course, I think this should also go as well on the dates of the votes. Both of these statements and rebuttals tonight. So then I will make my final statement. And let me scroll down to rebuttal, sorry, conclusion. And so there is conclusion. And let's see, I have 3 minutes. This for 3 minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I mean, it does change over time. I mean, of course, America, and that's a theme in the Trump and Ars and Hampton Turner textbook. I mean, they highlight how after World War II, the American economy was so dominant. I mean, by some estimates, nearly half the world's total gross domestic product produced by the global economy was just the United States economy. So anything that the Americans did in terms of expanding investment to other countries and integrating other factories in other countries and establishments into the production chains, yeah, that was going to be by definition pretty much the way to do globalization, because the Americans are the ones that had the money and they had the resources by far to do globalization at the end of the Second World War. And they were motivated to do that as well, not only because they wanted to make more money, but because, as Mr. Guandeok emphasized or noted in his question, they wanted also to encourage the rest of the world to develop economically in order to be more stable and prosperous, to resist the appeal of communism directed from Moscow. That they wanted Europe to recover and develop in order to have prosperous, strong countries, allies that could help in the containment of the Soviet Union and undermine the appeal of communism to the masses in those countries after the pretty poor experience that they had with capitalism and democracy in the 1920s and 1930s after the First World War. And so, yeah, anything that the Americans decided to do, that pretty much would set the standard for globalization. However, now we are here in 2022, and the world has changed a great deal since then. And the American economy is only a quarter of the total world economy output. And we have rising China that just in my lifetime, from the time I graduated high school to the present, has gone from being incredibly poor to being the second biggest economy in the world. And it's in the space of 40 years. And is going to pass the United States in terms of the size of its economy, probably this decade. And of course, the American way of doing things is not necessarily the most effective way if you're a company or corporation to be successful in a world where you have a rising China, you have now a rising India, and you have also a rising European Union. And the companies that have been most effective in dealing in a multinational environment for the longest time have to be Korean companies, because of the fact that Korea was impoverished after the Second World War. Korea doesn't have pretty much any natural resources aside from a little agricultural land. It has virtually nothing. So how is it going to be successful? Korea is going to be successful through its human capital. And that means being able to deal with international intercultural differences, where even to this day, 75% of the gross national product of the South Korea depends upon exports. That means you need to know how to reconcile cultural dilemmas. And I think South Korea has shown that no other country has done a better job than South Korea in reconciling cultural differences in Asia and Europe and going onward to other areas of the world as well. So my time is up. And if there are any questions, if not, okay, so you can vote. Pro rebuttal. Okay, and so back to voting on the pro rebuttal, and then, okay, then we can go to who won the debate. So you can vote on that as well, who won the debate. And again, it's anonymous, so I can't tell, nobody can tell how you're voting if you vote. So please vote on who, well, let's go on to presentation style. And again, the idea is here, I want you to think about how to evaluate the debates as you prepare your own debates in your upcoming classes. So pro presentation style, how would you rank pro presentation style? And go to con presentation style and presentation style. There you go. And then also use of week's reading material. And we go to pros use of reading material. And so you can vote there as well. And then also on cons use of reading material. And there you go. You can vote there on the debate also. And then also, please decide which side won the debate, grade the debate. And you can, again, vote there until, if you need a little time, you have until noon to vote on that. And then also grade the debate. Hooray, grade the debate. And so we go to grade the debate. There you see it. And okay, so I now have to close down this computer in order to convert the file. So I'm going to shift to my laptop, okay?
Sir, we cannot vote on who won the debate.
Why?
Because it says poor, limited, satisfactory, good, excellent, and not a side. In my
I screwed it up. Okay, let me go fix that. Thank you.
Okay.
So who won the debate? Oh, yeah, I messed that up. Okay, so we go to pro. I wonder if it's going to let me do this because somebody already voted. Might not let me. I might have to just throw it all out. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to basically delete. So I delete this one and then add another one, and week 13 and 22, 5, 27. Who won the debate? And go general, and for now, let's set this back a few minutes so that go to noon. And post result, yes, and it's anonymous, so the pro, con, and neutral cannot decide. And it's anonymous. So please vote on which side won the debate. Okay, pro, con, or neutral cannot, and it's anonymous, so I can't tell. We can't tell who voted how. So, oh, I have to share the screen again. Sorry. And here, go to share screen. Okay, so Okay. And 1 vote for Kritika. What about the others? 2 votes for Kritika. What about the others? And you have until noon to do that. So, all right, let me again close down this file because I need to save this, convert this